The chapter opens with the protagonist reflecting that everything had unfolded exactly as she had planned. A castle where luxury had no limits. The position of crown princess within a vast empire that ruled the entire continent. A world constructed for her sake alone, where everything existed to serve her and everything belonged to her. That was how it was meant to be. That certainty shattered the moment her engagement was publicly annulled. She was condemned as a despicable woman, accused of harboring jealousy toward her younger sister's so-called true love, of trampling others beneath her authority, indulging excessively in luxury, and acting solely for her own benefit. As punishment, she was stripped of her status and banished to the northern lands, a desolate region inhabited by beasts, where she was ordered to cool her arrogance in the cold. Thus, in the kingdom of Cloria, in the year 490 of the royal era, Karina Amandia Crocus, once destined to become the wife of Prince Orlando, the first prince of the realm, was instead exiled to the frozen wastelands of the north. Snow fell endlessly around Karina's new castle in the northern territories. Inside its cold stone walls, a maid informed her that a meal had been prepared. Karina regarded it with disdain, dismissing it as little more than scraps. When she turned for a response, the maid appeared confused, prompting Karina to state that she had no appetite and to have the food removed. In her thoughts, Karina observed the landscape beyond the castle. Trees stripped of their leaves stood in miserable silence beneath layers of snow. The land was swallowed by white, a suffocating cold that seemed to numb her body from the fingertips inward, devouring even the faintest trace of light. She let out a quiet breath and questioned how her life had come to this. Her mind returned to the kingdom of Cloria itself, a nation stretching endlessly in every direction, east, west, south, and north, unrivaled in power and wealth across the continent. Several years earlier, she had been welcomed into its royal family as the fiancée of Prince Orlando. From that moment on, she had devoted herself to becoming a queen worthy of the throne. She cultivated a commanding presence befitting one in power, forged connections with royalty and nobility from foreign nations, and pursued a level of beauty and refinement expected of a future queen. And yet, despite all of that, Prince Orlando had suddenly and publicly turned against her. He had been foolish enough to fall for sweet words and shallow praise. As the memory resurfaced, Karina clenched her fingers, biting at her nails while fixating on the true source of her hatred, the woman responsible for everything, the one she despised above all others. Turning her attention back to the present, Karina addressed her maid, Seal, remarking that she, too, must have been unlucky to be assigned to a master like her in such a remote and miserable place. Surely, she thought, Seal must already be tired of this fate. The maid, however, remained steadfast, affirming that serving Karina was her duty. Karina let out a scoff, dismissing her as an obstinate woman. She then turned toward the window, gazing out at the frozen land, and vowed silently that she would return to the top. The one who had cast her into exile, Orlando, and the one who had manipulated him, her younger sister Aurora, would both pay. She swore that she would have her revenge on them without fail. Seal attempted to soothe her mistress, but before anything more could be said, a sudden, thunderous rumble echoed through the castle, startling them both. As snow continued to fall outside, Karina and Seal stood alert inside the castle while the walls and furniture groaned under the tremor. For several tense seconds, they remained still, waiting as the rumbling gradually faded and silence returned. Karina reflected on the disturbance and recalled the words spoken by the foolish prince at the time of her exile. He had sent her to the northern lands, a place said to be inhabited by beasts. The thought resurfaced memories of old texts she had once read, accounts of terrifying creatures that had existed unchanged since the age of legend. Beings with razor-sharp fangs and immense claws, their grotesque forms defying common sense. It was said that they hunted under the cover of night, tormenting their prey in darkness before mercilessly ending their lives. According to those stories, after the Great War, such creatures had been driven into the northern regions. Karina dismissed the idea as little more than a myth, the kind of tale used to frighten children into going to bed early. She took hold of her coat, prompting alarm from Seal, but Karina had already decided to investigate the source of the noise herself. If an avalanche had occurred and the damage extended toward the castle, the consequences could be severe. She resolved to take some food with her and assess the situation personally. Ignoring Seal's attempt to accompany her, Karina concluded that her presence would be of no use and forbade her from following. With that, she shut the door behind her, leaving Seal inside. Outside, snow fell steadily as Karina made her way across the northern land. As she walked, she surveyed the desolation around her and felt the weight of reality settle in. The land was barren, stretching endlessly in every direction, nothing but white as far as the eye could see. She questioned her earlier resolve, wondering how she had been able to speak so confidently of revenge. All that remained to her now were a handful of servants and this vast, frozen wilderness. Gripping a nearby tree for balance, Karina examined the surrounding area and confirmed the cause of the disturbance. An avalanche had indeed occurred. Though the destruction was evident, she felt a measure of relief that the flow had not reached the castle itself. As she continued to scan the distance, something unusual caught her eye. A small shape lay ahead, half buried in the snow. At first glance it seemed like a puppy, but upon closer inspection, it appeared to be a wolf. The snow crunched beneath her feet as she approached the sleeping creature. Irritation rose within her at the absurdity of the situation. First, an avalanche had struck her land, and now an intruder had appeared as well. Even if it was only a young animal, she judged it best to deal with it immediately before it could grow into a greater problem. Karina raised her sword and aimed its tip at the wolf, whose small body trembled in the snow. At that moment, a memory surfaced from deep within her mind. She recalled a time from her childhood when she and Aurora had been summoned by their parents. They had been told that they were allowed to come closer. Their father had smiled and explained that their uncle had kindly brought them a gift and that they should express their gratitude. What he presented was a white stuffed dog. Karina had burst into excitement, thanking her uncle enthusiastically and declaring that she would treasure it. As she played with the toy, she noticed Aurora watching her quietly. Aurora wore a gentle smile, but their mother soon intervened, reminding Karina that as the elder sister, she should consider letting Aurora have the toy instead. Karina remembered hesitating, clutching the stuffed dog tightly, unwilling to let it go. Her father quickly stepped in and offered her something else in exchange, an embroidery kit, explaining that she was at an age where she should begin learning such skills. Their mother agreed, adding that since Karina would one day marry, this gift was more appropriate for her future. Lowering her gaze, Karina had reluctantly accepted the reasoning and handed the stuffed dog to Aurora. Aurora had asked if she was truly sure, then quickly thanked her, promising to cherish it. Karina had watched as Aurora began coughing again, and their mother had gently warned Aurora not to get too excited, lest she fall ill with a fever once more. Returning to the present, Karina reflected bitterly on the memory. She realized that she, too, had wanted to cherish that toy. With that thought, she lowered her sword and withdrew it, then knelt down in front of the wolf. She offered it her sandwich, encouraging it to eat. At first, the wolf only took small bites, but gradually it edged closer to the food. The scent seemed to instantly light up the young wolf's eyes. As it ate, Karina silently expressed her gratitude towards Seal for having prepared the sandwich. After a short while, the wolf stopped eating and fixed its gaze on Karina. She felt puzzled by the way it stared at her face, as though trying to understand something about her. Without warning, the wolf suddenly bolted away. Karina rose and followed the tracks it left behind, irritated by its abrupt departure and its apparent lack of gratitude. She soon stopped, letting out a groan, and decided to abandon the chase. She resolved instead to take the opportunity to see what the nearby town was like. Without warning, an arrow whistled past her face. Her eyes widened as she spun around and immediately dropped low to the ground. Before she could fully process what was happening, another arrow struck the snow close by. She concluded that whoever was attacking her must have mistaken her for a poacher and was deliberately aiming at her. She wondered if they had recognized her as Karina Amandia Crocus and were targeting her for that reason. Another arrow flew toward her and struck her chest. She fell to her knees, a grim realization settling over her. To her, it felt as though these attackers were nothing more than pawns sent by the prince and her younger sister. She forced herself to move, fleeing through the snow, convinced that exile alone had not satisfied her enemies, and that they had now sent assassins to finish her off in such a desolate place. After running for some time, her strength gave out. She collapsed face first into the snow and rolled onto her back. As she opened her eyes, she saw that a blizzard had begun to rage around her. A bitter scoff escaped her as she accepted that even the weather itself seemed to be against her. Her life felt utterly cursed, as though she were always the one destined to draw the shortest straw. In her fading consciousness, her thoughts returned once more to the white stuffed dog she had given to Aurora long ago. She admitted to herself, with quiet honesty, that she had wanted to cherish it too. A long-haired figure suddenly appeared before Karina. She could only see the person's back, and as she tried to focus on their face, her strength drained away. Her vision dimmed, and everything was swallowed by darkness. Some time later, Karina slowly regained consciousness. As she opened her eyes, the first sensation she noticed was warmth. She lifted herself slightly from the bed and looked around, realizing she was in an unfamiliar room. Confusion filled her thoughts. She had been in the snowy mountains, yet now she was somewhere else entirely. Before she could make sense of it, someone noticed that she had awakened. In an instant, she was pulled back down onto the bed, startling her. She greeted Karina as if it were morning, addressing her as a princess dear to her. Karina's mind reeled in shock. She glanced down at herself and realized she was unclothed, which sent her into panic. The wolf woman remained calm, remarking that making such a commotion immediately after waking was proof that Karina was in good health. She explained that Karina's clothes had been removed only because leaving them on would have caused her to freeze to death. She insisted that nothing improper had been done, stating that she would never act foolishly toward her betrothed before their wedding. Karina's confusion deepened at that word. She protested internally, unable to understand how she could be someone's fiancée when she had no memory of agreeing to anything of the sort. As she took a closer look, she noticed the animal features more clearly, distinct wolf ears. The woman questioned whether Karina still had not realized the truth. She reminded her of the time in the snowy mountains, when she had been starving and Karina had given her food. Karina recalled the moment clearly, the small wolf she had fed with her sandwich. The realization struck her with disbelief. The wolf woman acknowledged that Karina had remembered. Karina reflected that feeding the wolf had not carried any deeper intention on her part. The wolf woman, however, explained that in such a harsh environment, giving one's own food to a starving wolf, an animal that could easily have been dangerous, was not an act just anyone would perform. Ordinarily, a weakened yet threatening beast would be killed. She even pointed out that Karina had initially raised her sword against her. The question lingered as to why she had not followed through. Karina turned her gaze away, remembering that she had thought of a certain little girl in that moment. The wolf woman smiled softly and touched Karina's face, praising her ability to care for others and calling her heart beautiful. Karina felt unsettled by the closeness. When the wolf woman brushed against her ear, Karina tried to question what she truly was, but before she could fully react, the wolf woman bit into her neck, piercing the skin and drawing blood. Afterward, the wolf woman introduced herself as Rishitoka, daughter of the wolf tribe. She declared that she had just completed the tribe's traditional marriage rite and vowed herself as Karina's faithful partner. The meaning of her words stunned Karina. Rishitoka then asked for Karina's name, addressing her once more as her beloved princess. Thus, in the kingdom of Cloria, in the year 491 of the royal era, the noblewoman Karina Amandia Crocus, who had been exiled from the royal capital, unexpectedly encountered Rishitoka, the daughter of the wolf tribe. In the midst of confusion and without fully understanding what was happening, Karina found herself pushed back onto the bed as events unfolded beyond her comprehension. And so, without intending it, Rishitoka became Karina's fiancé.